welcome to art. If it's your first time, I know there's some people that are just joining us, so welcome. My name is Cathy. I teach this class. It's no charge. I teach Tuesdays and Thursdays, so if you're on the first time and you haven't given me your email, then if you email me, my email I think is in the chat. If you email me, I will add you to the email list that comes out on Sundays. And this is a step-by-step. So lots of times I send you a sketch. So there's a sketch that would have come out to you that you can follow along. We're not looking for an exact replica of the sketch, but if you can sketch something similar, that would be helpful. So we just like to get into art mode. If there's anything that's troubling you, things that are going on that you're able just to drop them for the hour that we're together, that would be helpful for you. So just set them aside on the parking lot. I'm not saying that they're going to disappear, but sometimes things have a habit of being less stressful or less important once you give yourself this 1 hour sort of meditation, but just completely devoted to art. So with that, we're just going to take a few deep breaths. So that's 3, and just hold at the top of the breath and then just let it go. You can let it go fast or slow, it's up to you, but just release it and drop your shoulders while you do that. You'd be surprised how we all, or many of us, sit high, and then as we drop, it's just such a release. So we'll start with that. So deep breath in and release. And another deep breath in and out. And one more time, in and out. Hello, the new person that's just come on and said hi in the chat, Elfig, so welcome. So you'll just need a couple of little buckets of water. One you're going to keep clear water, and one is for rinsing your brushes. You'll want some paper towel just to tap your brushes. So when we're painting, it's not a matter of really drying off your brushes, you're just tapping the water off. And brushes, of course, I've got 2 number 3s and a number 5 is what I'm using today. So if I decide to use a bigger brush, I'll let you know, but right now that's what I'm using. So I suggest usually between a 0 and a 6. So, and sometimes you end up, you have a favorite after a while. And I tend to stick with the 3s. It's got the right point. It holds enough paint and water for me, and it just works well for me. So in time, as you practice, you'll come up with your own favorite as well. So colors that we're going to use today are red, ochre, raw sienna, which looks very much like terracotta or like a garden pot. Green, and I've got 2 different greens, so it's not the lighter green, it's a darker one. Purple, so if you have purple, good. If you don't have purple, then we'll come up with a variation using red and blue, and white. So if you have white changes your picture from a watercolor to a mixed media. That's just the term that they call it, because watercolor typically is leaving a lot of white in your watercolor, but we're not leaving white, we're actually adding it. So that's going to change the dimension a little bit. So with that, we'll start. We're just going to do almost a paint by number. So I'll just tip my light back a little bit. It's hard to see the lines in my picture. So hopefully you can see the lines that I've drawn, which are just the background of this picture. So we're going to do step by step. We will not need a blow dryer. We're just going to go step by step and work and keep away from some things and move from top to bottom at different times so that other places in the canvas can dry. So this is watercolor paper. It's 140 pound. It is a Canson watercolor paper. I actually can't son, C-A-N-S-O-N. I get it from Walmart. I think you can get it from Michael's. You can get it from other art stores. You could even order it online. I have done that as well. So easy to pick up. And I just do a 9 by 12. So let's start with the top of our picture. I'm just going to lower my camera so you can see the canvas better. We're going to start and we're going to go on an angle. So I'm going from the center over to the outside edge, and I'm using red. So I'm going across. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to do the fun part of this, and we're going to start to put on some color. So I'm putting red. This is my number 5 watercolor, and I'm doing wet paint on dry. I did not wet the canvas first. And I'm just doing red right across the corner, from just about from the center of the canvas right to the outside edge. So we'll just do a step by step. If I'm going too fast at some point, just let me know and I'll slow it down a little bit. Now we're going to make an orange. So I'm taking the red paint and I'm mixing it with my ochre. So ochre it's not yellow. Well, it is yellow. It's like a yellow and brown mixed together. So I'm going to mix ochre and red together. More ochre than red. So I have an orange color. So I want a fair size puddle. And now I'm going to go from the corner, the top far corner, right across. I'm going to just bypass those rocks, those mountains, and I'm coming right to the outside edge. And I'm going to fill all of that area in this new orange that I made from ochre and the existing red. So I'm coming all the way across to the other side, right from the bottom of the red, all the way across. This is a desert sky, so we want it to be hot, almost like chili pepper hot. I've got red up in the corner. I'm just going to darken that a little bit. Watercolor tends to dry 20 to 30% lighter than when we put it on. So if your red has dulled down a little bit, go ahead and give it a little shot of color. And then I'm going to use ochre. And I'm going to put ochre. I've got my lines drawn, so I'm going to go around all of the lines that are there. I'm not doing over the mountains, I'm doing around them. I'm just avoiding those mountains. And I'm putting ochre in. So ochre is going to come all the way to the outside edge, right underneath that new orange that we put on, right down to the tops of the mountains. So we're still going on the same angle. So we still want that same angle. Before this completely dries, I'm just going to get my brush wet and I'm going to just tap it off on the paper towel. I'm not wiping the whole thing off. I'm just tapping it off I still want my bristles to be damp, and I'm going to just rub gently where the two lines join, where the ochre and the orange join. I'm just softening that line. I'm just rubbing a lightly back and forth. And then I'm rinsing off my brush because I would have picked up a little bit of that ochre and that orange. So I'm tapping my brush off again. And I'm going to where the red and the orange are, and I'm just softening that line a little bit too, just by rubbing a damp brush and just softening that edge a little bit. Now there's some mountains below. So we've got the mountains up above where we've just painted. And then there is a break. There's some mountains and there's a little bit of a break. So we have a little side mountain here. We have another mountain here. We have a few that are not attached directly to the ones we've just painted. So now I'm going to go into my purple. And I'm going to water my purple down a little bit, and I'm going to paint those mountains that are below what I've just painted. So I'm leaving that new color I've just put on and adding purple. So you can see it's not a full-on purple, it's watered down. So it's a little bit light, and I'm just painting the mountains below. So I want that purple color on. We will add a little bit of color to that, but for now, we just want that little bit of haze. Just at the top of our mountain. So lots of times when you do a shadow, blue or purple make wonderful shadows. So again, because I want to let that purple color dry, I'm going to go down to the bottom and I'm going to do the corner. This corner, I've got the purple on the one side. If I follow it down to the bottom, I've got another little rock or boulder at the side. It's got a tree coming out of it, but I'm just going, it's okay if I go over the tree, I'll still be able to see it. So I'm just putting ochre in that corner. So we're on the same side. We've got the purple. We're coming down to where the tree is. And I've still got some of that orange left from my sky. I hope you do too. If it has dried on your tray, just add a bit of water and it should liven it up a little bit. And we're going to do that rock on the other corner in that orange. So then what we're doing visually is pulling that picture together. So we've got some orange up top. Now we've got orange, we've got ochre up top, we've got ochre here. So we've got a nice overall, it's going to pull the same colors together in our picture. So if you've done red and ochre, whatever color this is up top, you want to duplicate that color down below. Yeah, so if red and orange, or red and ochre is what made that color that I've got up there. And I've done the same down in this corner. So we've got red up the corner, red and ochre mixed together to make orange, ochre across the top of the sky above the mountains. We've got the purple above the smaller mountains. We've got ochre in the one corner, and we've duplicated this orange in the other corner. So it's a little bit like negative painting, where we're painting the background and then the foreground comes forward. We'll have some more details that will really start to make things pop. At this point, we haven't used any raw sienna yet. And raw sienna is the color that looks like a clay pot. So it's a bit of a reddy, rusty color. And we're going to do those little rocks above that ochre that we've just done. And the little rock leading up to our corner. So with the raw sienna, I'm filling in this rock at the top of the orange rock in the corner. If you go out of the lines or you hit the edges and have a bit of a rough spot that you didn't expect to have, these are rocks, they are in the desert. That's perfectly normal. Not to worry or stress over it. Just take a deep breath. Just allow the paint to go where it wants to go. And remember, this is just a piece of paper, unless you're using a canvas, in which case it's just a piece of canvas. So you can see I've overlapped a little bit of where my ochre was and my raw sienna now is. And it's left a little bit of a dark spot in a couple of places. And that's quite all right. And with just a damp brush, so again, how I get a damp brush, I put my brush in my water, I swish it around just to clear off any paint if I don't want paint on there. And then I just tap it off on my paper towel. That way I'm not going to have extra water dripping from the steel part of my brush, but I have damp bristles. And so I'm going to take that brush and I'm just going to pull down paint that is from that existing spot and fill in that little white area. And so I get a little bit of a rough edge. A little bit of paint has lifted from my brown or my raw sienna, but I get a different color from my orange, and I get a little bit of different shading on my rock. So it's changed that to look more like a rough rock. So all I did was just pull down the existing color with a damp brush. I didn't add any extra paint. I used what was already there. So we're almost at half time. I'm going to read the card, which I think our joy meditation card today is love. And while I'm reading that, I'm giving you a big job to do. So we're going to work from one side of the canvas below the mountains. So we're leaving that side mountain out. And we're coming all the way across underneath the purple, underneath all this purple. So I'm just quickly showing you where. And you're going in the opposite direction of the sky. So the sky goes this way. Now we're going to go this way. And don't worry about going over the trees, but we're just going in the opposite direction. So don't worry about brush strokes leaving marks either. And it's not so important for everything to be without lines on it. Those lines will add to your drawing. So you're going wet on dry, and you're going in the opposite direction of your sky, and you're filling the whole thing in. So while you're doing that, I'm going to read the card because I know that's going to take you a few minutes. So take a deep breath, drop your shoulders, let the paint go where it's going to go. Just allow it to flow. And I will read, May You Know Joy cards. This is a meditation for everyday living. This is about love. So may you know love. Love, beautiful love. May you love yourself. May you be kind and gracious and generous to yourself. And may this love radiate to the world around you, to all beings and creatures, and to the environment. May pure love drive your actions and ideas. When you find yourself at a crossroads, ask yourself, what would love do? May you know love. Thank you for choosing that today. It's beautiful. I like that one a lot. And may you love your painting. So now I'll carry on with mine. So I'm not so worried about it being perfect. I'm just getting the color on. I quite like the different variation of lines on it. I like where it's lighter and darker. I like that it looks like a mountain trail coming down. So we're just building one mountain on top of another mountain, rock on top of rock, edge against edge. We're going to still do some more details. We've got lots of time. Now that our sky is probably dry, we're going to go back into the raw sienna, and we're going to work on those mountains. So let's paint in those mountains right to the purple. So this is raw sienna. So we're painting those mountains in. There's extra little lines on there and extra little crevices. Don't worry about those right now. We'll just get the color on. And not to worry too much about, again, not about it being perfectly even in color and tone everywhere that you put color. If it's lighter or darker, then it's more natural to what actually happens with a group of mountains or rocks in a desert. So we're going to put some shading on in different places to give the effect of where the sun is hitting. But at this point, we're just getting the color on all the places where the mountains are above the purple. So you can see that it's got some edges that aren't straight, a little bit wiggly. That's okay. If you don't have a steady hand, this is a great project for you as well. If you have a steady hand and you're trying to make it perfect, relax the grip on that brush and just let the color flow. So we've also got this little mountain at the side, and it's got two sets of mountains. It's got a little one down below. So we're going to leave that little one down below. We're going to do that. Well, actually we can do, you know what, do the whole thing, because we can go back and we can add the shadows to show where that breaks off. So let's just go ahead and we'll do that whole thing. So everything that's on there right now is in raw sienna. I'd like to come back in with some red, and I want to add some red halfway down this mountain. I just want to put the red color on top right to the edge where it hits the other rock. So on top of what was there, I've just set red on top. So you can see there's a bit of a break. And in the center, my middle rock from almost the top, not quite the top, but I want to add red down into the base of that mountain. And I'm going to put a little bit of red on the base of the other mountain. So this is just red, and I'm not rubbing and blending it in with the raw sienna. I want it to sit on top. So if it's not sitting on top, just get your red a little bit wetter or wait until your mountain's dry. So I just pulled red from my tray. It's just the red that I've used. It's the same red in my sky. It's the same red. So I just hit my red. So it's this same red. So I'm using that same red. It's not watered down. Now I'd like to give shadows to the rock. So to give shadow to the rock, I want the shadows all on the same side of the rock. So I'm going on the right-hand side of this rock, and I'm using purple. So when I put the purple on top of the raw sienna, it becomes very dark. So I'm starting to create some shadows at the sides of the rock, just using purple.
Are you kind of dripping it, or you're painting it down?
I'm painting it on. I'm painting it on. But I'm putting it, I'm just letting it sit on top. It's not, it looks like it's dripping, but it's not. It's actually painted on. So when I hold it back at a distance, it looks like a shadow. It gives a little bit of a crevice in the rock. If I hold it close, you can see the red is here, the red is here, and the red is here. And the dark color is purple. So when I put the purple on top of the raw sienna, it turns almost to black. And we want this to be only on one side of the mountains. So we're creating a shadow. So in between this red and raw sienna, I'm going to create another shadow coming down. So it looks like there's a crevice there in the rock. I'm also going to go on top of where the purple currently is. So I'm on top of where I already put that light purple in. And then with my brush in clean water, tapped off, so I only have damp bristles. I'm going to start from what I just put on at the purple, and I'm going to pull it down. So I'm going in the same direction, and I'm just pulling that down. If my brush feels like it's dry, I'm going to tap it off and get a damp bristles again. And I want to start to pull that purple. I'm getting it damp again, tapping it off, and I'm pulling that purple down the mountain. So I'm brushing a little bit. It's not a light stroke, but it's enough to move the paint. And I'm starting to blend that into the ochre. I'm just blending a little bit so that it adds to the ochre. Moving down below with purple again, I'm going to add a little bit of detail at the top of the rocks. So I'm just touching with the purple. I'm just touching on the top, just with the purple, just to give a rough edge. I've got a little bit of a crevice in the rock. It's just touching on the color that's there with the purple, and that little rock that I had in the center, I just brushed and just blended that purple in with that rock.
Kathy, I'm sorry. Where you just worked, kind of in the middle, bringing it down.
Yes.
Did you just paint a purple line and then bring it down like that, or more?
This is what I did. I'll do it again. So I just put little purple dots that just gave kind of a rough edge.
Okay.
Rinsed my brush off and tapped it dry, so I had a damp brush only with clear water, and then I just rubbed that purple into the rock.
Okay, thank you.
Because that was a light color on that rock, will give and if you just pull and leave little gaps in between, it will give a nice look for a rough rock. And if you leave that little side area, you'll see, and there's a couple of different colors there that will give a nice variation at the bottom. Now I've been using my number 5 brush, and now I'm going to switch to my number 3 because it's a smaller brush. I'm looking for a narrower point. If you have smaller than a number 3, If you have a 2, 1, or 0 would be helpful. And I'm going into my raw sienna, and I'm just tapping my brush to come up with a nice clean point on the end, because now I'm going to do the branches on my tree. So it comes from the rock up into the ochre. So again, if you don't have a steady hand, this is a good project for you, because this is tree branches in a desert that don't have to be completely straight. If they're wiggly or off a little bit, that's okay. So that's the tree on the one side. And I'm just going to give, actually, I'll go to the next side, because I've got
What color is that branch? Brown?
this is in raw sienna.
Raw sienna.
Raw sienna, the same color we've used throughout, the raw sienna.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and we've got the other tree at the far side, which has lots of little branches, lots of little offshoots. And again, if you don't have a totally steady hand, not to worry. Trees in the desert don't grow completely straight. If they do, someone could correct me, but I don't believe they do. So it's quite pretty sitting against the ochre. So if it's lightened up, which watercolor does, you can go back on and you can give a little bit of a darker coat. We're going to give that tree just the look of leaves, still using the raw sienna. I'm just going to put some little dots here and there beside the branch. They're not actually even touching in some spots. Your eye will naturally fill in the gap. So we're just looking for something that looks a little bit like branches. Something that looks a little bit like leaves. So that's just the same color on there. That's the raw sienna. So this is the finished painting. And this is where we're at. Now, if you've got a few branches on, a few little sticks on there right now, that's okay. We're going to work to the other side. And I'm going to do some dots of red, which are kind of sporadic. Just some dots of red around the branches. I'm rinsing my brush off. And I'm going to give it dots of purple as well around those dots of red. So I've got red and I've got purple on a little bush on the other side. This bush on this side just has those little sticks of the same color, raw sienna. It doesn't have the vibrancy of the other bush. So we're just in between, and I know some people are still catching up. So I want to give that a little bit of time, just another minute or so to dry, because I'm going to put white where those red and purple leaves or flowers are. And so while I'm waiting for that to dry a little bit, and some people are in between, I'm just going to rough up my mountain a little bit with a little bit of ochre. I'm just going to give a little bit of roughness. Maybe I'll add a little bit of raw sienna, just to give a few little trails coming down the mountain. Sometimes I don't like it to be too perfect, so I just add a little bit, just mess it up a little bit. So I'm just adding a little bit of raw sienna here and there, and then using a clear water and just rubbing that, just blending that in. Just gives a little bit of roughness. I also don't want my tree or my plant to just be out in the middle of nowhere. So I'm going to give it a little bit of grounding, just a little bit of rough underneath it. And now that that's probably dry enough, I'm going into my white. So again, it's just wet paint on dry, and I'm going to pop some little white dots on the top. If when I'm putting them on, I pick up any of the color, I'm going to clean my brush and go back into clean white. And I want that white to sit on top or in and around where that color is. So it just gives a little bit of brightness. And as I said, when I'm putting that color on, I hit any other color and start to pick up the other color, then I clean off my brush and I start fresh so that I have a nice clean white.
What brush did you use for the white?
I still have a number 3. I'm using the same.
Oh wait, you're always a pointy brush?
I always use this number 3 pointy brush. It seems to do what I need it to do.
Alrighty.
So now I can see that my purple has dried a little bit lighter. So I'm going to, because I have a minute, I'm just going to take a little bit of fresh purple, a little bit of watered down, not too much, but I just thought I'd add a little bit of that purple back in because it dried pretty light. And I want it to look like it's a nice shadow. I'm just adding some of that purple back on. If I pick up any of the colors beside it, I'm not worried about that. And it adds to the whole vision. And then we need to decide on artist signature, where you want to put that, what you want that to look like. So somewhere on your painting, you can put your signature. And I'm just popping mine in the corner. It's going to be part, it's here, it's part of the picture. And one last thing, I'm just going to soften this a little bit. This purple is kind of taken over a little bit. And there you go. And that's what you can do in 1 hour. And I know some of you aren't done, and there's certainly more details that you can do. You can take more time and you can put some steps along your mountain if you decide. You can add a little bit more red, or you can actually lift off some color, make it look like there's a little bit of scarring on a rock. That's up to you. You can take some of this and just lift off some of the color. That's up to you. But that's where we're at. So that's what you can do in 1 hour. Well, I'm glad you were able to join. Just remember, it's just a piece of paper. If you're not happy with what you've created today, with what you've done, then certainly try again. And if in between I've inspired you to try adding and blending different colors, then I'm happy about that. And I think that you'll be happy in seeing how much farther you can take it. So don't let this be the last time